Hi, I'm Steve Strope here at my shop Pure Vision, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our 2014 Halo project, the 1967 FMC Black Ops Fairlane. Now, as some of you know, when I do a design, I like to base it on what I call a plausible anchor of reality. In other words, I like the design to have a theme that all the little tidbits kind of come together to make an interesting package that also are based on something that makes some sense. So this car, the background is in 1966, preparing for the upcoming 67 race series. A group of engineers and designers, kind of top secret inside of Ford, that I've nicknamed the Black Ops, kind of after our government's secret military group. They got together and started designing a test mule car that was basically a performance data acquisition vehicle. What this allowed them to do is step outside of any of the rules that, say, NHRA or NASCAR would confine them to for competition. This car would never be put in competition, so they were able to do things with it that they couldn't on their normal race car. This allowed them to gather information and then put that gained knowledge towards the cars that would be constrained by rules and that would wind up going into competition. So I'd like to give you a brief little go around on this car and introduce you to it and show you some of the things that are going to make it very, very special. So I'm going to be going down some important bullet points of the major modifications done to this car, kind of an overview. Now don't worry, later on we're going to be doing more videos getting specific and showing some of these things in more detail. But right now I just want to show you things like the engine bay. This is a great example of the lengths we go to do modifications to keep the feel, not just modifications for modification's sake. You Ford guys, I'm sure, are already noticing this shock tower is massively, massively changed and altered. But when the motor's in here, speaking of the motor, it's going to be an all aluminum sock motor with a, let's say, a prototype intake manifold. It's going to be very cool. But to make room for that giant sock motor, we needed to reduce the size of the shock towers themselves. So we literally cut these into, I don't even know how many pieces, and they got shrunk down. But we kept the general feel and shape. This opening here will actually have a double shear set of plates for the shock bolt. And we also modified a set of double reinforcement plates. They're literally handmade. But again, to keep the Ford feel, and we're actually going to be making new sheet metal here that looks like stamped pieces. When we're all done, it'll look like Ford made it this way. We're not trying to do smoothie street rod. We're not trying to do something modern and cool. We're trying to do what it would have looked like, or our interpretation. Other things that I've done, like these master cylinders, both of them Ford, you guys will, your Ford guys will know this older fruit jar styled master. We're actually using that for the clutch because a new modern lightweight remote master cylinder would look completely incorrect. So we've moved the master cylinder over to clear the motor. This piece has been handmade to look like a factory stamped piece, but it's actually completely altered. The master cylinder has been moved over at least an inch or two, but everything looks like Ford did it that way, or at least our interpretation of what Ford might have done. So a lot of sheet metal changing and alterations, but yet the goal, when you look in here, it looks like it would have come that way. And sometimes it's harder to do it that way than to reinvent the wheel. So what I wanted to do with the suspension is I wanted to create something different, again, along the lines of what if Ford was experimenting with things and trying adjustable suspensions. So I went to the IndyCar Sprint Car adjustable torsion bar and worked with a bunch of different companies, Schroeder, Global West, Fat Man Fabrication, JRI Shocks, to create this front end. Now, we'll get into detail later, but what you have is a drop spindle, tubular arms and strut rod from, these are from Global, this is from Fat Man. The torsion bar, the carrier tube, goes through the frame rail and actually exits into the cabin, which again, we'll show you some more later. This is in prototype stage. We're getting there. We've still got to make our mounts on the bottom on the lower control arm for the shock absorber and for the link arm from the torsion bar arm. But this is a really, really good view. And again, you can see all the work in that shock tower and the reinforcement pieces that were put in that go up to the double shear brackets that hold the top of the shock. And we've also reinforced all the bottom of the frame. So really, really unique. I've never heard of anybody doing this. And again, in the spirit of the Black Ops working on top secret things, I think this is one of the things that are definitely going to stand out. So like all the different aspects of this car, we try to keep everything as Ford as possible and what if as possible. Now, these cars did come with a 4-speed, but they had a very small trans tunnel, and you had to make this little bump in the side of the trans tunnel for the 4-speed. I didn't like how that looked, and I wanted to change things, but keep it functional. As crazy hand-built as this car is, I still wanted the owner and whoever had it to actually be able to use it and maintain it. So what we did is the following. This piece here is for a 68 Mustang. It's the piece that you would weld into the bottom of a 68 Mustang transmission tunnel to the floor pan. We also use the Mustang cross member and the Mustang transmission mount, all for the stock Ford 4-speed top loader. Also, the sheet metal you see here, you can see the different sections, 1, 2, 3. They were also taken from, all these parts I got from Dynacorn. They're reproduction sheet metal pieces. We got a floor pan for a Mustang and cut this area out that we needed and blended it in. So Fairlane, Mustang. So now I have a piece that the shifter bezel and boot bolt right onto, the 4-speed and the linkage works, our cross member and mount works, and it's all Ford. But it isn't that bumped odd little situation. Now, there was more method to the madness. We did this because the way that the Fairlane's transmission mount was kind of came off the back of the cross member and it was really flimsy. This is much stronger, but we added these hat pieces. We made these. They go all the way over to these piece of box rails. It's a 2x4 section that you can see runs from the front all the way to the back. And then you Fairlane guys will notice some really heavy-duty plating here. This is plating that is working in conjunction with stuff on the top of the floor that is reinforcing this whole area because the weight of the car, each corner is here from the torsion bar, the arm of the torsion bar that is holding all the force against the front end going up and down. So this has been made like a Sherman tank, but also looks very factory and will also be extremely usable. So check this out. The original Hallman Moody race cars had they were worried about ground clearance and of course performance and flow of the engine. So their headers came down into 4 tubes that ran side by side instead of a big stack of 2 and 2. And then it merged to 1 collector and out. So we had SPD make these. They are works of art. And they will go right about here. And from here, it'll go into a 4-inch flat oval that'll go back. But instead of a hockey stick, it's actually going to be an arc. And then cut on a baloney cut. So the opening on the side is going to be like that off a 4-inch flat oval. But these are just amazingly cool. And as you can see, crazy amounts of ground clearance. Pretty darn cool. So there's a lot going on under here, and I'm gonna work from the outside in. First is this frame rail and the wheel tub. Now, the frame rails on this car stock actually came out at an angle. Well, that's not helping us when we want to fit a wide tire. So we wanted to make the frame straight to give us as much tire room as we could. So basically, from this point, where you can see my finger, all the way to back here, the frame rail is made, multi-pieces, and inside is actually reinforced and boxed and strengthened. We straightened the rails and then kicked it out. There's also doubler panels. This is a mount for the rear sway bar. Now our wheel tub, we decided not to even bother with the Fairlane wheel tub and problem solved. I called up Kyle Tucker at Detroit Speed, and that is one of his Mustang deep wheel tubs that we just lightly altered to fit our situation here. So you Fairlane guys, take note of that. So we've moved in, and now we've of course got our beautiful Speedway Engineering Supermax quick change that I thought would be perfect. Again, Black Ops, they need testing, they need to be able to change things on the fly, so we're changing gear ratios without a problem, right? Now the triangulated 4-link started as a kit from Heights that we've obviously modified and integrated in. We've moved everything inboard, the lower link going into the frame rail that has been boxed, doubler plated, highly reinforced. And you can see up around the roll bar kicker tubes coming down in, going into the chassis. This whole area up here is massively reinforced, and it's reinforced for the adjustable rear torsion bar that we'll show you in a little bit. The shock absorbers, these look like coilovers because they are, they won't be. They'll just be a really bitchin' shock from JRI again. And then above me is the cardboard prototype fuel cell that FuelSafe is going to build us. Now, a lot of this sheet metal started life as the sheet metal from this car that we've cut, altered, and moved around. Obviously, we've taken this piece and moved it back to make room for the quick change. And this piece now settles into the same area where the factory fuel tank was, but now it's a FuelSafe piece that'll have a built-in fuel pump, keeps things safe, and also obviously a much more race-inspired look. So let's go up top and I'll show you what these little pieces are. These actually go to links that go up through to the torsion bar arm. It's very, very cool. So let me show you the top side of all that cool suspension work. Now, first thing your eyes are going to go to is the series of tubes. Now you can see the down bars coming from the roll bar to the landing pads. Now these are the tubes that are the carriers for the torsion bars. Torsion bar number 1 will be like here. Torsion bar 2 will be right here. You can see the dropped recesses in the floor. That accepts the arms in their travel, and the hole allows the links to go down to and tie into those mount tabs you saw on the top of the axle tubes. This whole unit is removable because if you ever want to change the torsion bar, obviously you couldn't slide them out. So you unbolt the fasteners, take the whole unit out, change your torsion bars, put them back in. Now the other side, the arms, the adjusting arms will be here and hitting against the tubes. This will be wrapped with a piece of like 1/4-inch chromoly. We'll be finishing that up in a little bit. You can also see the kickers and down bars that also reinforce the main frame that hold the torsion bar tubes. And you can see the top side of the factory sheet metal that has been cut and moved. And this, of course, is the top of the upcoming FuelSafe cell. So other little things is you can see the battery tray in there. The battery will be there. There will be a block-off panel that will be removable by Zeus fasteners. So the owner can get in, pop that panel out, and get right to the battery without a problem. So I'd like to show you some more neat stuff on the car here. Starting along here, you can see the top side of that 2x4 rail that we put in, and this triangulated reinforcement panel that also ties into the landing pad of the roll bar. Moving forward, you can see where the kicker comes down. It ties into this doubler strap that goes up, over, and wraps all the way around the shifter, wraps down and goes all the way to the other side. That is on the top side of those hat pieces you saw on the bottom that tie into the Mustang crossmember piece. So it all ties together as a very strong, comprehensive unit. Again, borrowing from other Fords, we needed, this was a bench seat car, so we needed risers for the bucket seats we were putting in. So we actually cannibalized these from, I think from another Mustang floor pan, cut them, welded them in, and made our own versions of what Ford would have done or what we needed to do. Moving up onto the dash, I have a shortened steering column with no electronics in it at all from Flaming River. I use Flaming River exclusively. We use their columns, their steering shafts, their racks, everything. The stuff does its job for me to do my job. Now on those torsion bars, closest to you, you can see that bar is too long. It's actually going to end like this. Now, these are the adjustment arms at the end. So the torsion bar will stop here, and there's a heavy-duty landing pad here that this plate is actually welded in. If you remove this, you would see underneath here an extensive amount of reinforcement and bracing, and then this plate put over top of it. So the torsion bar will look like that. And no, your feet or the brake pedal or the throttle pedal does not hit it. We tested, trust me. Now up on the dash, you Fairlane guys will know that the dash pads were very, very tall, and they had a kind of a vertical plastic gauge panel. We've eliminated the dash pad, welded over areas, and I have a small dash padette kind of, which you'll see once the car is finished. And this recess now that gauges will fit in, that I'm doing as a conjunction between Speed Hut, Redline Gauge Works, myself, and Reactor Watches. You'll have to find out more later on, probably when we unveil the car. Very special set of gauges. Now, doing this dropped panel, we get to use this as our lid, our baseball hat per se, to keep things shaded. And of course, I've simplified the dash, some really neat military style ignition, warning lights, very Spartan. Again, test vehicle. So trying to keep things pared down, but still instantly recognizable as Ford. I haven't really changed this dash, but I have. But that's the key. So that's that for the inside. Now, of course, there'll be a whole bunch more to look at when the car is done, but now we wanted to show you guys what's underneath the skin, what's kind of behind the green curtain per se. I really am excited about being able to show you guys some of the hidden and really important, cool modifications that are going to make this car so special. Sometimes at a car show, you don't get to see all of them, or like I said, some of them are hidden from view. So if you want, you can check out our Pure Vision Facebook page to keep seeing more tidbits all the way up to when we unveil it at SEMA. Thanks for watching.